Proud of being a D-Day veteran. I'm proud of my medals, really. Being a D-Day veteran doesn't mean that you're any kind of hero, because there are 130,000 heroes, really. And the only heroes are, as I say, and I've said before, I'm grateful to be alive, grateful to have survived. So sorry so many had to die, but so many heroes, and there they lie in Normandy.
Jack is supported by the Royal British Legion, and for him, Remembrance Sunday is a time to thank those who gave away their tomorrow so that we can have our today.
Thousands gave their lives for the country, and we should remember that they gave their all, they gave their lot because of to help to free the world of tyranny.
Medals of honour for Jack, who wants no one to forget the sacrifices his comrades made. Anna Riley, GB News, Leeds.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry in the east, but cloud and rain moving in from the west. Let's home in on the detail. Generally dry and cloudy across the southwest of England, some clearer spells, a band of rain and strong winds in the far west, slowly moving east. Feeling mild though, highs of 15. Remaining dry in the southeast of England, some clear spells in the evening and overnight, winds staying light with some patchy mist and fog later. Then cloudy across most of Wales with some clearer spells in the east, winds increasing at the coast with rain arriving in from the west later. Taking a look at the Midlands, it'll be much cloudier there, particularly in the evening across the region, but staying mostly dry. Some clearer spells at times. Southeasterly winds remaining light, however, it will be breezy over high ground. And remaining cloudy across the northeast with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, some clearer spells confined to the west, breezy at the coasts but lighter winds inland. And staying dry across most of southern Scotland. Cloudy in the east, patchy light rain and drizzle at times, breezy at the coasts, particularly in the west. And cloudy, wet and windy across most of Northern Ireland, however drier in the far east, rain continuing to move slowly east through the evening, heavy at times. So dry then with clear spells, mainly in the southeast, but rain sometimes heavy, sometimes slowly eastwards, strong winds in the west.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart. and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alistair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me. Noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
The Irish government's new hate speech bill causes a stir, British Airways goes gender neutral, and in the US midterm elections, the promised red wave just doesn't appear. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. So this is a show where we delve into culture and politics and find out what lunacy those social justice activists have been up to this week. They never fail to disappoint. Coming up, maths is racist, apparently. I've got an interview with Dr. John Armstrong, reader in financial mathematics at King's College London, about new guidance insisting that maths ought to be decolonised. I'll also be talking to barrister Sarah Phillimore, who is suing Eventbrite for pulling ticket sales of her book launch because, well, she believes there are differences between men and women. Burn the witch. I'll also be discussing the excesses of environmental activism with the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, and I'll be looking at the US midterm elections and their implications. Is it time for Ron DeSantis? Are Biden and Trump finished? I'm going to be joined by the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson, and former spokesperson for the Clinton and Bush White House, Robert Weiner. But before we get on to any of that, please welcome my panellists for the evening, the comedians Francis Foster and Tobias Pearson. Tobias is over from Sweden. You're already in the country. Why are you here? What are you doing here?
I've got papers. It's fine. It's not an invasion. You can relax. I'm just here to experience the tube strikes and the knife crime.
I don't think the Tories are worried about the Swedes.
You think so?
No, I don't. You're sort of... You know, you're like Vikings.
I'm fairly
like Vikings. But...
Yeah, I'm fairly polite, yeah.
You're polite.
Yeah, I'm just here to see you, of course.
That's the only reason you've come over?
Yeah.
Well, and I've roped you onto my show. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. It
Not
works.
doing any gigs while you're here? Not doing any...
Well, I did a gig yesterday.
How was it?
People laughed. I went home. That's good.
That's a good gig.
That's a good gig, yeah.
What about you, Francis? You're actually touring, I believe.
I am on tour at the moment.
Yeah.
I actually, I think the first time we met, I actually got signed by a very big comedy agent who told me, stick with me, son, I'm going to make you a star. So anyway, on Tuesday, I played to 42 people in Bradford.
That's why you get the agents.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually woke up the next day and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to treat myself to a little bit of breakfast to, you know, take the taste of out of my mouth of the gig. So I put in, where is the best place to eat breakfast in Bradford? And Google gave me one-word answer, Leeds.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, actually, 42 in an audience, that's not so bad for some comedy. Have you done the Edinburgh Fringe?
Yeah, exactly. That's a
full house.
Yeah.
And the average audience at the Edinburgh Fringe, I think, is 6.
Yeah.
It's really depressing, isn't it? You've done...
6, yeah. Some of them alive, which is good, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes. I've actually seen you at the Edinburgh Fringe, but...
I did the Fringe, I did one show for like 25 Italians. Afterwards, I said, did you enjoy the show? Nothing. They just stared.
You're quite declamatory. You gesticulate quite a lot, so I think they probably just enjoyed the movement.
I did this. Past that. An hour.
They probably thought it was a more sort of avant-garde dance piece that you were doing. Anyway, got to get some questions from the audience. We've got a question first from Mary. Mary, hello.
Hi. Is Elon Musk leading Twitter to disaster?
Is Elon Musk leading Twitter to disaster? Well, lots of people would say so. So, of course, Elon Musk took over the company and he keeps changing his mind about all sorts of things. He said at first that for the blue check, which is the verification tick that you get when you're relatively well known, that you would have to pay $8 a month. And then people complained, and then he took it away, and then he doesn't know what he's doing, does he?
No, but the thing is that this has actually been brilliant for comedy. I don't know if you've seen this, because loads of people have been verified, then changed their names to products like Coca-Cola or people like Ben Shapiro. So someone changed their name to Ben Shapiro and then went, I just want to feel the soft, sweet touch of a woman's hand.
Yes, they did. They also changed, they made their own account, the Coca-Cola account, and said Pepsi is better.
Yeah.
And of course, when you put that out with the blue tick, it looks like the official account. You know, you had George W. Bush, official blue tick. I miss killing Iraqis. You know, and Blair said, me too, mate.
Yeah. Exactly. That's fantastic.
No, the best, did you see the O.J. Simpson one? Was not going to lie, I definitely did it.
Yeah. And of course, this was the whole point of the verification tick system. The whole point of the tick was that you knew it would be real, so that people couldn't impersonate famous people and get them in trouble. But they didn't.
You got a blue tick, right? And you got a blue tick?
I've got a blue tick. I don't know why, really, but I've got a blue tick. But who's going to impersonate me? I mean, why would they want to do that?
Because you're interesting and... You know, you're on telly.
But the thing is, Tobias, they had this system which should have worked, and I think the reason it stopped working is that Twitter changed what the verification thing meant. Because ultimately, all it ended up meaning is that these are the people we like. You know, they're not necessarily well known. And then there were even people paying like thousands of dollars to get a verification tick, and then Musk comes in and says, actually, £8 a month. That must have been gutting for them.
But, I mean, Musk has actually been very honest, and he says, look, we've taken over this business, we're going to try and we're going to try and do things a little bit fairer, and as a result, we're going to mess things up, which is what happens when you take over any business or you build a business from the ground up. So I think people to then start pointing fingers and going, oh, they're making mistakes, they're doing this wrong and doing that wrong. Of course they're going to do things wrong.
No, but, Francis, a bit of planning, though. Like, because of this verification issue, he decided he would put on an official tick. So you've got the blue tick, but then underneath it says official. And that appeared, I saw it on Ricky Gervais's account, official. 4 hours later, it's gone. And Musk tweets, I killed it. So he's not he's deciding on the hoof. He doesn't really know what he's doing, does he?
Is that the real Musk, though?
Well, exactly. Well, the other thing is, a number of people have impersonated Elon Musk, and he's just deleted those accounts.
What's her name? The comedian?
Kathy Griffin. He actually deleted Kathy Griffin's account for impersonating Musk.
Yeah, and she had 6 million followers or something.
Something like that. What was really tragic is she went then on her dead mother's account to complain about it.
Really?
It's all very grim. It's all very macabre. But anyway, yes, Musk is... Do you know what? I don't care, because Twitter needed a shake-up.
Yeah, and look, I think if Elon bought Twitter for $44 billion and then canned it, that would help humanity.
I think that's what he should do.
That's what he should genuinely do.
Let's have a question now from Stephen. Where's Stephen? Hello.
Hi. Do you think Rishi Sunak, will manage to win re-election?
Pronounced his name as well as Biden. I think Biden called him Rashid Sunak.
Yeah.
Which no one picked up as being really racist.
No.
But, you know, that's the Democrats.
It's Swedish. It means old man.
Oh, does it? OK. Well, this is a good question, though, because there's been a report that's come out by the More in Common initiative, which suggests that Rishi Sunak could struggle to replicate Boris Johnson's 2019 electoral success. And this is all about the red wall and the blue wall. And I mean, look, the point is that Boris managed to coax all of these industrial Labour heartlands to lend him their votes because of Brexit, right? But Sunak doesn't really have that clout. I mean, he's the richest man. He's richer than the king, right? So can he connect to the industrial heartlands of Labour? What do you think?
What do you think?
I'm going to say no.
No, I don't think so. The problem is British politics at the moment is kind of like watching West Ham when we're in the Championship. Stay with me, right? OK.
Is West Ham a team?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, it's not part of the... It's not something you get from the butcher.
Just imagine something like... you like musicals. Imagine a really badly written musical, all right?
I don't have to. I've written some of them.
OK. So it's basically like watching West Ham play another really rubbish team where no one deserves to win, but someone kind of has to. Do you see what I mean?
Must.
And yes. Yeah. And that...
So are you suggesting that... But you think Rishi is better than Liz Truss?
Yeah, well, who isn't? I mean, you would be better than Liz Truss.
Where would Liz Truss be on the as a football team? How would you compare her to?
I don't know any football team that has lasted 44 days.
Right, OK. But whereas Sunak's more like your kind of Yeovil town.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd say he's more bland than that. He's kind of blandly effective. He'd be like Arsenal.
OK. Well, look, apparently that's controversial, but luckily I don't know anything about football, so now I'm sure you don't know anything about British politics.
This is too complex for me.
Yeah.
Red wall, blue wall, stone wall, wall of hatred. It's just a lot of walls.
It's a lot of walls.
I tried to open the article. There was a paywall. I couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. In that case, we can let you off the hook. Yeah, I just don't know what's going to... I don't think the Tories... I think it's going to be Starmer next time, clearly.
I think what actually is happening is that we have a political system that is not fit for purpose. Neither of these political parties actually represent the average voter.
Well, then what about proportional representation coming in? What about the idea that we can have these smaller parties? Why don't we break the two-party system?
I completely agree with you. I think that's actually what needs to happen because most people are looking at these parties and going, well, the Tories have been objectively rubbish if you've looked at everything that they've brought in and the chaos this country has sunk to under their rule. And then you look at Starmer and then he's asked a question like, what is a woman, that he can't even answer. And he's like, well, if you don't understand basic biology, how are you going to sort out the economics?
I saw that clip, deer in headlights.
Yeah.
He was absolutely terrified. Yeah.
I mean, let me
get this very straight.
Tobias, the way you need to understand British politics is we've basically got a Conservative Party that is in no way Conservative. We've got a Labour Party that doesn't care about working people. No. We've got a Liberal Democrat Party that isn't liberal or democratic. So no one really is doing what says on the tin, and that's the problem. You know, in fact, the Labour Party, I mean, Starmer has completely failed to support working people. When they went out on the strike, he would say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I agree with you. I think if parties like the SDP will be able to get a shot, but they can only get a shot if we break the current first-past-the-post system, surely.
Yeah, and I think that what we need as well are these smaller parties, both on right and left, that actually genuinely hold the bigger parties' feet to the fire to ensure that they actually do something. Because the only way they're going to be motivated to do something is if they know that they're going to lose seats during the general election, then they're going to be motivated. Otherwise, we're just going to carry on with this absolute shower where nothing seems to be happening. Every politician is interchangeable, and we don't get, in many ways, real democracy.
Are you still talking about West Ham now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Tobias, do Swedish politicians know what a woman is?
Most of them do. I'm not sure everyone can say it out loud. It's the same sort of thing.
Same sort of thing,
People pretend that it's a very complex question, and who could possibly say what a woman is?
Yeah, it's really not that complex, is it? OK, well, let's move on to a question now from John. Where is John? Hello, John.
Good evening. Does an organiser being charged with fraud hurt the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, this is a Black Lives Matter organiser charged with fraud over a fundraiser which has links to the campaigning group. And this is Zara Salim, who's going to appear before magistrates in January, charged with 2 counts of fraud by abuse of position of trust. The charges follow an investigation into a BLM fundraising page, which was for the demonstration that ended in the toppling of Edward Colston's statue in 2020. Now, we've seen this before. There's been some sort of dodgy characters within BLM. And there was the woman who basically bought a massive... was it a beach house in Malibu or something?
They all got
something
mansions,
like that. They got mansions. And
support the working man, and they're sitting there with 7 swimming pools. And
so that kind of undermines their Marxist credentials, at least.
Yeah, exactly, So she's been lying. Yeah, Black Lives Matter.
But do you think that, you know, was this intentional? Was this... I mean, people gave money...
I'm sure it was,
feeling that this was a cause that they supported and that, you know, that they cared about.
But she's quite young, right? She's 22, so maybe she's just bad at maths or something.
Well, you think that's all it is? Benefit of the doubt. Do you think that's right? Maybe it's a mistake?
I think it's actually very sad because obviously with the murder of George Floyd, tensions were very, very high. And then Black Lives Matter came in. And then people got carried away. And a lot of it was due to the pandemic, actually.
Yes.
Because if you think about the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, what happened a week before is that people actually forget that, but literally a week before, people were ready to kill Dominic Cummings. In many ways, the biggest supporter of BLM was Dominic Cummings because he actually saved his life. But if you think about it, you know, people with BLM is that what they said and what they actually were 2 different things. Like people say that they said Black Lives Matter, and of course Black Lives Matter, every right-thinking person believes in it. But if you look at what the actual organisation is, what they espoused, what they believed in, those 2 things were completely incongruous.
Well, it was Marxist, but also if you looked on their website at the time, I remember looking, and I thought it was odd at the time because journalists weren't looking at the website.
Because
it was
that's
saying
not
explicitly...
true.
They were afraid to look at the actual...
Well, it said things like, we're going to dismantle the nuclear family and break... And, you know, break down cis heteronormative whatever. And it's like, that doesn't sound very much to do with George Floyd or police brutality.
No.
There are all these other things sort of wrapped up within it, and it's almost like they relied on people's good nature. But look, we don't know what's going to happen in this particular case because it's, you know, this is someone, I don't know what her position is, but we do know that there has been some dodgy stuff going on in the past with these people buying houses and all the rest of it, and it just seems like a shame, really. Anyway, we're going to move on to another question, and this one is from John. It's another John. It's a different John. Hello, John.
Do you think Donald Trump is going to decide to run for president again?
So, like, with the midterms, I mean, you've all got the gist now. So the Republicans thought they were going to get this massive red wave. It absolutely didn't happen. They thought they were going to get control of the House and the Senate. They got the House. Well, actually, we don't know yet, but they probably will sneak just over the line to get the House. The Senate, they definitely won't get because the Democrats now have 50 seats. And if it's a tie, then Kamala Harris will decide anyway. So this is a massive loss for the Republicans. And a lot of it has to be down to Trump, doesn't it, Tobias? Because basically all of the candidates that Trump endorsed did really, really badly. Because he endorsed them.
That was a big surprise,
Well, but he only endorsed them because either they were celebrities or because they believed his theory about how his election was stolen in 2020.
Yes.
That's not a sound basis. And people are sick of it, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. And he always blames the media, and everyone's against me. Everyone's spreading lies and fake news. And he's paranoid, and he's going hubris,
And he's going after Ron DeSantis now. So because Ron DeSantis, so governor of Florida, has done an incredible thing. When he won 4 years ago, he won it by 30,000 votes. This time he won by 1.5 million votes. He's completely flipped Florida now. And the reason is good governance. Like, he's a good governor. And he doesn't forget about the woke stuff and critical race theory in schools or gender identity ideology in schools. He talks about that and addresses it, but he actually gets things done.
He's competent.
He's competent. He's competent, and that's why Trump is now calling him Ron DeSanctimonious.
Which
and
is
saying,
kind of funny.
It's sort of funny.
But this is the point. The reason Trump is not doing as well is because he's forgotten what he is, which is he's a stand-up comedian. That's the
he's not a politician, you're right.
You know, that's the entire point of Trump, like Little Marco. Do you remember that?
Yes, he had a nickname for everyone.
He had a nickname for everyone.
Sleepy Joe, Crooked Hillary.
Yes, Crooked Hillary. And he went on, he said that, you laughed and went, that's true. And every time he used these little slogans about people, that's how you saw them. Ron DeSanctimonious is rubbish. You're losing your touch, mate. You need better writers.
We don't want a stand-up comedian in charge of the free world, do we?
Well, you look at who we've had. You've had Joe Biden, who is hilarious unintentionally. And then you've got Trump before him. It'd just be nice to have someone who's, you know, cognitively able to do the job.
But don't you think we've reached the point that we're kind of sick of the culture wars driving everything? Insofar as if Trump were to come back... I mean, if you compare, if you watch Ron DeSantis giving his speech, then you watch Biden, if those two run, it's a shoo-in for the Republicans, right? So surely that's the way to go now. Or do you think Trump has too much of a sort of grip on the party?
I read 2 days ago that Biden said that he would run in 2024. But he can barely walk, which is... I mean, if he's alive, he will. But, I mean,
The thing is, the thing is with these midterms, although they haven't worked out very well for the Republicans, it's actually, in a way, it has. Because now Biden has to run. Because there's no reason to get rid of him. I mean, there were all these Democrats sort of champing at the bit to try and get rid of Biden. They didn't want him to run for the Democrat Party. But now he sort of has to because he's got a mandate.
But look, the real problem is that, and it's the same that we had in this country, you look at the quality of candidates that both parties have fielded and they're simply not good enough. And you're looking at someone like DeSantis, and even though you may disagree with him and you may disagree with his politics, you can't disagree with the fact that he's competent.
But that's my point. I'm sure I would disagree on most things with him. But I can see that he's obviously going to beat Biden because Biden's just a sack of straw at this point.
I mean, I went to
I don't mean to be mean, but they may as well replace him with an inflatable version.
Or a bag of anything,
anything.
But he's become, just like Trump, he's actually become a punchline. I went to a comedy club in New York and this comedian came on and did this set about him, and he went, Biden's new look for this summer is open casket.
I mean, the thing is, I feel a bit bad about it because I think it's kind of cruel because he's I mean, the audience clearly don't, you know, but...
42 people.
I don't think... exactly. It's not funny in a way, is it? Because this is a guy, he's getting old, he's obviously got some dementia issues.
Yes.
He can't speak.
Yeah, but
the
it's
man
like
can't
the
speak.
Emperor's New Clothes. Someone has to, get him over.
Well, that's the point.
That's a tragedy of it. It's no, over there. Oh, hello.
He's the president, ultimately. So we've got, he's talking about how there are 54 states. Even I know that. That's wrong, because my American geography isn't good. And he's mixing up his wife and his sister, which is just creepy. I
mean, that might go down well in some states.
Yeah, probably. Iowa, I believe. Anyway, look.
Maybe you should try and run for mayor of Cornwall.
What, me? Oh, him?
Yeah.
We've actually got Cornish people in the audience. They don't normally go out. OK, after the break on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be discussing why maths degrees are being politicised because of demands to decolonise the curriculum. See you in 2 minutes.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens,
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. You may have heard of schools and universities removing certain texts from English literature syllabuses And now maths has also come under fire. Top academics are warning that maths degrees are being politicised because of demands to decolonise the curriculum. They accuse the Quality Assurance Agency, an independent charity that checks on the standards in the university sector, of engaging in tokenistic anti-racism efforts. Well, to explain what on earth is going on here, I have got Dr. John Armstrong, Reader in Financial Mathematics at King's College London. Dr. Armstrong, thank you for joining me. Now, we're used to all this kind of stuff in the humanities. You know, decolonising the curriculum comes down to removing books by old, dead, straight white men, which are now considered problematic. And, you know, that's bad because you lose Chaucer, Shakespeare, etc. Quite key. But in maths, you would have thought that mathematics is immune to that kind of thing, right? Because it's about numbers. It's a universal language.
Yeah, I think most people, when they first come across the idea of decolonising mathematics, when I first heard somebody saying decolonise your courses, they have absolutely no idea what it's meant to mean.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people sort of make up for themselves what it might mean. They sort of vaguely think it must mean let's do something good to help our minority students, let's find some ideas to help them. And if that was what decolonising the curriculum meant, then it would be an excellent thing. But if you actually look into the theory of decolonisation, there's a whole academic theory of decoloniality. And that theory is really quite anti-scientific. So the idea of the theory of decoloniality is, it's a strange idea when you first hear it. It's that the whole of rational knowledge, the whole of science, was constructed in order to oppress non-Europeans. So Europeans invented science, they invented mathematics as a colonial project to oppress other people.
Well, that's not true, for one thing. Mathematics and science aren't solely the domain of Europeans, by any means. Mesopotamia, Asia, you know, there's all sorts of ways in which some of these disciplines have originated elsewhere.
The mistake you're making there is to use rational arguments. Yeah, so, I mean, that's absolutely right. The numbers that we use, they were first written in India. They were Persian mathematicians, Arab mathematicians. They brought them to Europe. They brought them via the Moorish conquest of Spain. Yes. So there is a bit of colonialism there. But that's not the colonialism.
You really have to look for it, though, don't you? I mean...
Yeah, you do.
But this is the problem, is that in order to decolonise something, one must assume it must have been colonised. And who's been colonising fractions? I mean, you know, this is an odd way to behave. So, I mean, I've heard all sorts of, mad activists saying things like this. I mean, a few years ago, there was an activist in America called Professor Gutierrez, who said that mathematics itself operates as whiteness. Do you think she's got a point?
Well, I mean, I haven't studied her work. It sounds interesting.
You don't need to. It's absolutely insane. It's just the rantings of a mad woman. But this is but it's taken seriously. This is the problem. So the idea that there are these power structures in society, and that knowledge, in the way in which it is taught at the moment, is there to prop up the power of straight white men, and it's created by them to prop up the power of other straight white men. This is almost like a religion, really, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the point you're making there is, we're laughing at it, but it is a serious theory.
Yeah.
So there are serious academics putting this forward, and it's having serious consequences as well. So one example that concerned me was that in New Zealand, they've decolonised their school curriculum.
Yes.
And they are now saying that Maori knowledge should be given parity, equal status with all other forms of knowledge, and that includes scientific knowledge. So if it was given equal status with Christianity, totally cool with that. But for me as a scientist, as a mathematician, I think that scientific knowledge has a special status, and I'm very uncomfortable with doing that. And one very concrete example of that is that they now teach in New Zealand, as part of their chemistry and biology national syllabus, when they teach the atomic theory, they introduce the idea of, it's again pronounced Maori, with a shorter vowel sound, spelled M-A-U-R-I. It means life force. And they say that all particles have life force, and that life force is preserved during chemical reactions. And so they're putting some sort of spiritual dimension into the atomic theory. And they're undermining the experimental basis, in my view, of the atomic theory by doing that.
So that's interesting, because in New Zealand, some people reacted to this. There were some academics who signed an open letter about this stuff, and then they got attacked and cancelled and called racist. I mean, they were specifically complaining that in science courses in New Zealand, the government wanted the Maori knowledge of the rainforest goddess. I mean, I believe the rain was described as the tears of a goddess.
Okay.
And that came into a science course. And that, of course, is interesting to study if you're talking about indigenous culture, and you don't need to disrespect indigenous culture. But rain isn't the tears of a goddess.
No, I don't think so.
No. And that's just, so when we prioritise these different ways of knowing, I mean, it doesn't really... I mean, this is like... Richard Dawkins made the point, it's like teaching kids about druid ways of knowing in a biology lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear about other cultural views, and, you know, I'm actually quite interested in the history of science and things. In Europe, we've had plenty of strange and non-scientifically accurate views ourselves. I thought the theory of Maori sounds remarkably like Leibniz's theory of monads, I suspect.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
No.
Well, it's nonsense. He thinks the world is made of unperceived perceivers.
Yes.
Everything is made of monads. And, you know, this is... Leibniz is a fantastic guy. He's one of the absolute heroes of mathematics.
Yes.
But it's nonsense.
Well,
and we shouldn't be afraid to call it nonsense.
Some of Pythagoras' theories were quite nonsensical as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
But he also had a few decent ones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but this is serious stuff, isn't it? Because ultimately, if we start saying that... I mean, I've seen academics in America try to problematise the idea that 2 + 2 = 4. They say, actually, in some circumstances, 2 + 2 can equal 5. And that's straight out of Orwell. But they're saying it for real now.
Well, I saw a very serious mathematician, Tim Gowers. He argued that you could say that 2 + 2 = 5. He came up with... I can't remember his argument for it.
Yeah, if you've got a shoddy calculator...
Yeah, he was looking at different sort of mathematical models where you might come up with a different number system where it might make sense.
OK.
You can talk about these things, but I think what he was missing there is just the political point of it all. That, yes, if you redefine things...
Yes.
You can change the meaning of words, you know?
Yeah, of course.
But we need to keep the meanings of things. It's very important that we can communicate to each other.
For maths, I mean, surely, if engineers start following indigenous ways of knowing, won't planes just start falling out of the sky? They won't work, right? I mean, I'm not being xenophobic there, but that's just the truth of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is the fundamental difference, isn't it, between science and other ways of knowing, is that it's founded on experiment and it has material consequences in reality that are testable and meaningful. And so you're absolutely right. You would not want somebody developing a plane on the alternative theories of knowing.
And, well, I mean, ever since they problematised Newton, because Newton maybe was racist because he was born hundreds of years ago, that might be why, and they're sort of saying that even the laws of motion, therefore, need to be reconsidered. I mean, to what extent has this infected your department and your university?
Within the teaching of mathematics, it has not infected things.
Okay.
You know, our students are not clamouring for us to talk about these things. It's within the wider university that I think it's having an effect.
Okay.
Where we see it within a maths department is in things like EDI courses. So everybody has diversity and inclusion courses forced on them, and those are where you start seeing these strange theories. So, for example, in Kent, there was a compulsory EDI course for students that got all students, they had to say that sex is a spectrum. And this is, like, that's probably the worst example that people have seen.
Yes.
But it's happening throughout the university sector that we're getting compulsory courses and students are getting politics forced upon them.
And I should clarify, EDI is equality, diversity and inclusion.
That's right.
Actually, equity, diversity and inclusion, which is not quite the same thing.
OK.
But these things are being pushed onto people, and it is ideological, ultimately. So just a final question, Dr. Armstrong, what do we do about it? Because it's obvious that academics who are serious about their subject don't want to become preachers. You know, that's not their role. They're not priests.
Yep.
They're scientists. And so how do we push back against this when it seems to be unstoppable at the moment?
Well, I think the main issue I have with this particular proposal is that it's a centralised body telling mathematicians what they should teach and they're determining what everybody across the whole country should be teaching, certain specific political content. We should go back to the basic idea of how universities work, and that's where you have academically led courses developed by researchers who are brilliant in their fields. You've got academic governance of universities, and you should let academics who understand their subject, who are passionate about their subject, teach the students who are there to, in my case, learn mathematics. We should just let them get on and teach that.
It'll never catch on. We'll see. Dr. Armstrong, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So after the break on Free Speech Nation, we'll be speaking to the barrister and co-founder of Fair Cop, Sarah Phillimore, about why Eventbrite has stopped selling tickets to her book launch. Don't go away.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Later in the show, I'm going to be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel, Francis Foster and Tobias Pearson, and we're going to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. So email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk, and we will solve your problems. Just give it a go. It definitely works. Now, the barrister and co-founder of campaign group Fair Cop has had her book launch smeared after Eventbrite stopped selling tickets to the event. The ticketing site says the book, which is called Transpositions, Personal Journeys into Gender Criticism, promotes, quote, hate, danger and violence, and violates their community guidelines and terms of service. 85 people had already booked tickets, but now it seems Eventbrite are debating about whether or not they made the right decision. So to bring us up to speed on whether or not her book launch has been cancelled, it's the woman herself, barrister and co-founder of Fair Cop, Sarah Phillimore. So, Sarah. So, this book promotes hate, danger and violence? What on earth is this book?
It's a collection of narratives from men and women. We asked the question, myself and my co-editor Al Peters, what was it that brought you to the gender wars? Yes. Because we thought, this is astonishing, this is unparalleled. What is happening now has not happened in my lifetime. And so much of it is happening online. We thought, wouldn't it be lovely to gather people's stories in a historical artefact, a book that you can actually hold? So that's all it is. We've got about 100 contributions. Someone's written a very moving poem. And I just thought it was a really interesting collection of just, you know, ordinary people, what brought them to this fight.
So no sort of bomb-making instructions or anything like that? That would seem to be what Eventbrite are implying here. But so you co-edited this book?
Yes.
Is that right? And the launch was set to go, and then you just suddenly got an email or something? What happened?
No, the launch, to be absolutely clear, the launch party is going ahead. It's at the Conway Hall. They haven't pulled it, as far as I know.
Yep.
If they do, I'll add them to my legal action. But I think the Conway Hall have got slightly more credibility in this field.
Yes.
So the book launch is going ahead. What's happened is my ability to sell tickets online has been taken away from me. So I've got some people coming up to me going, well, is this really a problem, Sarah? Your launch is still going ahead, you're sold out. And I'm saying, well, yes, it is a problem, because this is a very clear example of a much wider problem. You've got a lot of big tech companies, almost always based in California, imposing their own standards of morality on us. And that's really the thrust of what I'm trying to do here. I'm saying I've got rights under the Equality Act not to be discriminated against. You cannot, with your terms and conditions, force me to contract out of my statutory rights, because that's what the Eventbrite terms and conditions seem to be saying. If I've got a legal brouhaha with them, I've got to go to California to duke it out. So I'm saying that cannot be right.
So can you clarify this for me? Because, you know, recently we had the case of PayPal, who deleted the accounts of the Free Speech Union. They since reversed that decision. And part of the problem there was that they were based abroad. Is it correct, on a legal level, is it illegal for a company to discriminate against someone because of political views?
Well, this is the really interesting question, which I'm hoping my action, if it goes ahead, is going to flush out. Because, of course, international borders are breaking down. We've got digital currency, we've got people contracting with people all over the world. The internet has brought us that. It's been a great boon, but also really complicated the legal position. I think for the Free Speech Union and PayPal, that was a slightly different scenario. There wasn't a clear-cut act of discrimination that I could see. But I think for me there is, because we've now got the fact that gender-critical views are confirmed as a protected belief. And I hate calling it a belief.
Yes.
It's not, it's a fact. The fact that sex is real, it matters, is a fact.
But isn't that incredible that it had to be confirmed in law through the Maya Forstater case?
Yep.
That people can now say this and not lose their jobs. It seems astonishing.
And it's just really annoying that we have to now use the language of belief to be protected by the Equality Act.
Right.
But what Maya did was a great service to us all. We owe her a huge debt of gratitude. She got it confirmed that this is a protected belief. So what I say, it's quite clear-cut. Eventbrite, by pulling the plug, they've clearly done it for no other reason that they don't like my belief that sex is real and it matters. Because, of course, there was nothing violent, dangerous or hateful in the blurb for the book launch. They couldn't have read the book because it's not published yet.
But a lot of the trans activists and social justice activists more broadly, they believe that to say that we don't all have a gender identity, to say that there is a biological difference between men and women, that is hateful.
Well, this is the nub of it. If you go into their terms and conditions and have a look about what they say when they say hate speech, they talk about you're not allowed to disparage somebody. Now, I find that really terrifying. It's the same problem that Harry Miller exposed with the non-crime hate instance.
Yes.
The definition of hate is so broad and so wide as to be meaningless. I mean, I could make some comment about your tie.
You better not.
And you could say, she's disparaging me, it's hateful. And you may well feel that, but that's your problem. That isn't something you can then spread out into the wider world and compel people.
As well.
No, it's a lovely tie. I'm using that as an example. To try and bring disparagement under the umbrella of hate is really, really dangerous because it's wholly subjective. I mean, hate, I think we could all recognise it when we see it. If I pushed off this stool, used profane language, tried to kick you in the face, pretty hateful, I deserve to be arrested.
Yes. But don't you deserve to be arrested because of the crime, not because of the intention behind the crime?
I'm quite happy with something like that being used to increase the sentence for the crime. But it should only come into play after the crime has been established and I've been convicted of the crime. I don't have a problem with sentences being mitigated or increased because of factors like that. But they've got to be identified. It has to be hate. It has to have some objective standard that we can measure it against.
So is that why all of these social media companies, big tech companies, they're using language like this, hate, violence, but it doesn't mean what everyone else means by hate and violence. And doesn't this really problematise the law? Because doesn't the law really rely on everyone having shared definitions of words?
Well, exactly, and not just the law, society. I mean, the rule of law is absolutely essential to a functioning society. If we strip language of its meaning, it's not just a problem for the law, it's a problem for everything the law touches, which is everything.
Yes.
So that's why it is so frightening to see foreign companies being able to come operate in the UK, make a profit off UK citizens, and then tell them, you don't have the rights that you thought you had. You don't have the rights that Parliament gave you. I mean, this is about national sovereignty. This is a really big deal. I think it's a direct threat to our democracy if the will of Parliament can be subverted by a foreign company who says, I don't like this particular political view. I mean, what would happen if Eventbrite were directing this against black people or Jewish people or Muslims? I mean, how could anyone think that was OK? So why is it OK to do it to men and women like me who know, as a matter of fact, sex is real?
But that's an interesting comparison, isn't it? Because there are protections against discriminating on the basis of race, sexual orientation, that kind of thing, all wrapped up in the Equality Act. But discriminating because someone has a viewpoint that you find hateful, that's not so clear-cut. It's not there, is it, in the legislation?
It's protecting a belief, and a belief's got to meet the Granger criteria, which boils down to it's got to be something substantial, not whimsical, and it's got to be worthy of respect in a democratic society.
That's the phrase, isn't it?
And that's what Maya, the initial judgment, told her, and all of us who believe that sex is real, that we were on a par with the Nazis, because it was only belief in regimes like that which would fail the Granger test.
And just to clarify, in case people don't know, that was the ruling which she then appealed, is that right? So, and because of that appeal, the idea that there are differences between men and women is now a belief that is considered respectful in a society, right?
And it's something that makes me so angry but we've got no choice. We've got to fight with the language of the Act. I have to say this is my belief and it is protected, although I would much rather call it a fact.
So with all of this stuff that's happening and with the excesses of the police, various police forces, you work with Fair Cop, who are attempting to address those kind of things, it does seem like the only way to resolve this appears to be taking everyone to court.
Well, that's what I thought, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. I am getting increasingly worried about lawfare, because I did think a couple of big cases, we'd sort it out. We've had those big cases. We've had Miller, we've had Forstater, and I still have people on my Twitter feed every single day telling me, well, you can think what you like, but you can't talk about it, you nasty Nazi. And that's exactly what Eventbrite seemed to think. And this is why I think my case is so interesting, because I was actually, one of their legal counsel reached out for a Zoom with me and said that they'd read all the case law, but then we got into some conversation about manifestation of the belief. And I said, well, I think you need to read the case law again. It's beyond doubt. It was again restated in the Alison Bailey case. She wasn't just allowed to think that sex was real, she was allowed to tweet about it.
Yes.
So you can't, if you've just got a thought in your head that you can't ever say, then that's no right at all. So it's really, the message just doesn't seem to be getting home to people. They are simply ignoring court judgments. And it's not just trolls on Twitter, it's politicians, it's lawmakers, policymakers. It's as if they're all in some kind of haze. They just can't see.
Well, a religion, I suppose.
I think that is exactly it. What we're seeing is the kind of blind faith and the rage. I think when you challenge people, the rage that you get back is very similar, I think, to people fighting for their religious faith, because they know they can't evidence it. You're attacking something they feel very strongly, but they can't prove it.
I saw today on Twitter there's an individual has designed a poster which is now up in an NHS hospital in Wales talking about how we all have a gender identity. Well, it may as well say we all have a soul.
Yeah.
And the reaction, when people obviously have reacted to this guy online, he said they're all evil, hateful transphobes. And none of them are transphobes. They're just saying, I don't have a gender identity. So how can we possibly deal with people who are convinced that what's going on here is that the world is full of Nazis, rather than people just want to acknowledge reality?
I don't know. I am getting increasingly frightened. I thought lawfare would sort it out, but of course nothing will have a dent on a religious fervour, and that's what really troubles me. But I don't know what else we can do.
So where are you on your case with Eventbrite? What's going to happen next?
Well, they are going to review my case, and that's going to take them until November the 16th, and apparently requires 3 barristers and God knows how many law firms. So I don't know what they think they're reviewing. But they are then going to reach out to me again and let me know the outcome of that review. I've got solicitors and a wonderful pro bono barrister on standby. We'll be having a conference on the 18th. So we've got enough money in the kitty. I've got about 6,000 donated so far. That will pay for the conference.
And this is the crowdfunder that you've started?
So I'm in a kind of awkward position because I'd love to say to everyone, give me all your money, this is really important. But there is, part of me still hopes, probably very naively, that Eventbrite might turn round and say, you know what, we made a bit of an error here, and we're going to reinstate your event, and we're really sorry. And I think that would be fantastic.
Yes.
That would be another brick in the wall back to rationality and sanity. But if Eventbrite say, no, you are hateful, dangerous and violent, I want to carry on. So I'd like to please everybody after November the 18th, give me all your money, please. Forget Christmas. Your children have enough presents. This is important.
Do. So effectively you're saying just hold off until we find out what happens.
Yeah.
Well, it would be great if you could come back on and give us an update nearer the time so that we know whether we all need to help you out with this crowdfunder. But because it's not just about you. This is a precedent that is set for everyone.
I think it's potentially huge because there isn't another Twitter, is there? There isn't another Facebook. There isn't another LinkedIn. If you get turfed off these platforms, you're gone.
Yeah.
So these private companies exercise enormous power, and they've got to exercise it responsibly. They've got to be accountable. So I'll be very interested to see if Eventbrite are prepared to make themselves accountable.
Sarah Finnemore, thank you very much for joining me. And after the break, my panel will be back with me. Tobias will talk to us about Swedish politics, which I'm sure you're all fascinated by. I'm also going to be talking about a surprise beauty pageant winner in my weekly monologue, and we're going to be having some more questions from our beautiful audience. Don't go anywhere. Thanks, Sarah.
We are GB News. And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My guests, Tobias Pearson and Francis Foster, are back with me in the studio. I'm going to touch on Sweden now and the changing political situation there. So the Swedish Democrats have been making significant gains recently and now have influence over government policy for the first time. 3 centre-right parties recently agreed a minority coalition after September elections, and although not a member of the governing faction, the Swedish Democrats, who are often considered to be far-right, will have a say on policy in exchange for their support, right? So I want to talk to Tobias about this because obviously you're from Sweden.
Yes.
And now, why did... Sweden's known for being sort of very liberal, left-leaning kind of country.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone votes for a party that is perceived to be far-right.
Not everyone, of course.
No, but enough to put them into power.
Of course, yeah. And they are far-right. I mean, they have some neo-Nazi roots and they're sort of brown and far-right. And
Okay.
You know, you can't move for Nazis now in Sweden. It's just sort of boom, another Nazi everywhere.
Okay.
And the most common girl name is Swastika. It's just Swastika Svensson. Anyway,
But enough about your family. Let's talk about the situation.
It's not Ulrika, it's Ulreich. Anyway, no, seriously. I mean, they come from neo-Nazi roots, right? And they are so far right. But I still think it's a reaction. You know, because we've had the Social Democrats for like 50 billion years.
Yes.
And, you have to be left-leaning in Sweden. It's the law, right? And we've had many problems for like 20 years with gangs, and we have daily shootings now. We have kids with Kalashnikovs and kids getting robbed. And mainstream parties, they don't want to touch that. So this party comes along and says, we will deal with this horrible thing.
So why won't they touch it? Is it because it is connected to migration?
I can't possibly say.
Okay,
That's not for me to say. I'm just from Sweden. Yeah, there's some. Of course, yeah, there is a connection there, and that's why, like your horrible, the grooming scandal of the UK.
Yes.
Or the scandals, really. So it's a similar thing. People sort of don't pretend that it's not there. So they came along and.
So is it with the grooming gang scandal over here? The police, it was found, were nervous about being perceived to be racist, so they just let children be sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
So we have a similar situation.
You'd think that would be an easy sort of one to sort of, where should I let my sympathies?
You think just apply the law equally irrespective of race would be the way to go, I would have said.
Yeah.
But in Sweden, similarly, I mean, surely if people are shooting each other, if there are gangs with grenades and these kind of things going on, Malmo apparently is particularly bad.
No Jews left in Malmo, almost. I mean, it's just,
Because the anti-Semitism has accompanied this as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But why can't governments see that if you fail to address this and talk about it, then the far right benefit.
They will
because
disappear.
they come along and they fill that vacuum, right?
I mean, people have said this for 15 years. And if you deal with this in a rational way, and you won't get, Le Pen and those people, those populist parties, they will disappear. But they come now and they fill that vacuum, and they only talk about migration, immigration, and these kind of things. So, I mean, they have themselves to blame, partly.
Well, it's very sad, but anyway, Tobias, thank you for talking to us about that. Don't go anywhere, because I still want to talk to you about all sorts of things. Anyway, this is just after 8 o'clock now, and this is Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. The culture war throws up all kinds of absurdities. So this week, there was the spectacle of an overweight man winning a Miss America beauty pageant. There's the image. Now, if you don't think that that is misogynistic, just ask yourself one question. Do you think for a second that a woman of that size would get anywhere near a beauty pageant, let alone win it? And the answer, of course, is no. And the reason he won is because he identifies as a woman. And that, of course, must be validated, even if it's at the expense of women. And look, I don't think anyone should be body-shamed or made to feel bad about how they look, but you can't just identify as beautiful in order to win some prizes, right? I'm terrible at sports, but I can't just claim to be an athlete and demand a place at the Olympics. Perhaps the culture war should really be called the age of entitlement. This is a period in which individual emotions are prioritised over objective reality, and activists no longer need to persuade anyone of their point of view. They just have to use accusations of bigotry as a form of blackmail to get their own way. So if you just look at the way that Just Stop Oil activists are behaving, so they're disrupting people's working days, putting lives at risk, vandalising artwork and buildings. And of course, there's a legitimate debate to be had over climate change and how we might better tackle it. But simply making demands without attempting to persuade is not going to work. Look at this interview with a Just Stop Oil activist from just the other day.
Politics has failed us. I'm 28. This is the 27th COP conference. And what has happened every single year? The emissions have risen and risen and risen. If you were doing your job properly, everyone would be out on the street.
So we have a
but they're not.
So
and I really want you to understand. Do you know how grave the situation is?
I do understand.
And do you have children?
I've got children.
And do you love those children?
Indigo, please.
Now, when was the last time you were persuaded by being shouted at? And why is it the most vociferous activists are always so posh? And that one is called Indigo Rumbelow. And I'm not even making that up. It's like when those posh kids were put on trial in Bristol for pulling down the statue of Edward Colston. I mean, one of them was called Milo Ponsford. Another was called Sage Willoughby. Why is it that aristocrats are always the ones lecturing everyone else about privilege? I suppose we could call this the Prince Harry effect. But sometimes the activists cross a line, and sometimes it stops being funny. Sometimes their authoritarianism is just too blatantly expressed. And we can see how dangerous these culture warriors actually are. So this week, a sign appeared at the Institute of Contemporary Music Performance in London. And it read, "What is a TERF? Trans-exclusionary radical feminist ideology is a specific form of transphobia. The primary TERF assertion is that trans women are not women and accordingly have no place in women's spaces." And then there was an option to report anyone expressing such views and a QR code to make it easier. Now, what are we to make of this? Well, let's leave aside the Stasi-like nature of reporting people for wrongthink and the fact that TERF is really just a synonym for witch, and go straight to the fact that a college has no business attempting to police the personal opinions of its staff and students. It's not morally right, and it's also probably illegal. So the sign describes the belief that sex is immutable as an ideology. But biological reality is not an ideology. This is what we might call projection, because it is, of course, the denial of biological sex differences that is the true ideological position. And note how this sign frames this view as a radical extremist fringe position. And there's just one problem with that. It's the position held by the majority of the public. So why would an elite college pretend otherwise? Well, this is a tactic we've seen before. So the journalist Louis Staples once claimed that J.K. Rowling had been radicalised online. Now, her radicalisation amounted to a belief that there are biological differences between men and women. So who has really been radicalised here? Is it the person who accepts the reality that has been known and understood throughout human history? Or is it the kind of person who would do this? Now, that is someone burning some Harry Potter books on a barbecue. Now, I would suggest that burning books because you don't agree with some of the author's opinions is somewhat unhinged, as is sending endless death and rape threats to the author. So if it's online radicalisation we're talking about, then surely these are the kinds of things that we might be looking for, not just a statement about the biological reality that there are differences between men and women. It's important to remember that the culture warriors really are a minority in every generation, but because they hold disproportionate control over our major institutions like the Institute of Contemporary Music Performance, they can pretend that the minority view represents the consensus and that those who hold the majority view are heretics who ought to be reported. These are ideologues who will accuse you of being ideological if you don't adhere to their belief system. Let's have another look at that sign. The second part of this sign says, this ideology, there's that word again, also affects trans men as TERFs assert that people assigned female at birth but identify as male shouldn't be allowed into women's spaces either. Now, this is palpably false. Feminists simply have never made this claim at all. And so what this suggests is that whoever made the sign doesn't understand the point of view that he or she is attempting to demonise. And that shouldn't surprise us. But these culture warriors don't believe in debate. And so they never hear what the other side has to say. They have decided that it is hateful and transphobic to state biological facts. And you can't really reason with such an extreme stance. And this is why the culture war is so bad for society, because its proponents are essentially authoritarian, tearing down statues, burning books, deplatforming speakers, cancelling people for wrongthink, demanding the dismantling of women's spaces. They want to force their values onto everyone else. No discussion, no compromise, it's their way or nothing. Democracy is outdated. It's time for a new form of tyranny imposed by a privileged and elite class that pretends to be victimised. And worryingly, this mentality is catching on. There was a recent poll by JL Partners that revealed that 61% of 18 to 34-year-olds in the UK would favour, quote, a strong leader who doesn't have to bother with parliament or elections. That's called a dictator. And although in the history of humankind there may have been the occasional benevolent dictator, for the most part they haven't worked out too well. But culture warriors have forgotten that a plurality of views isn't something to be feared, it's a sign of a healthy society. So rather than shouting at people who take a different view, or calling them monsters or fascists or whatever other epithet springs to mind, let's restore the necessity for debate and discussion and, yes, disagreement. To put it another way, everyone just needs to grow up. OK, we're going to get some more questions from the audience now. We've got a question from Paul. Where is Paul? There is no Paul. Oh, you're Paul. Paul's very quiet.
Yes.
Paul, what's your question?
Yeah. Do you think schools should ban all smartphones?
Right, so do you think schools should ban all smartphones? So this was about a boarding school in America where the students and staff, they've banned the smartphones. This is Buxton School in Massachusetts. They were noticing that pupils were being distracted by the phones. What a surprise. But apparently, the kids kind of like this.
Well, of course they do, because the smartphone basically means that not only can you get bullied in school, but also when you go home, you can get bullied at home as well. And also people are going like, oh, but they're distracted. Of course, you have a device in your hand where you can download or view the hardest of hardcore pornography whenever you want. Of course, a 15-year-old boy is going to be distracted by that.
Yeah, but also, I suppose they want to... This is the thing that people forget about kids is they probably want to be focused on their lessons, don't they?
No.
No. Well, look, you know, there's the Michaela School, you all have heard of the Michaela School, run by Catherine Burblesing, and this is a school which is, you know, predominantly working-class kids, not privileged at all, and she's set up, she's got this school where, you know, the discipline is very, very rigid. They can't talk because they walk in the corridors between classes. They definitely can't have smartphones, and guess what? Their results are brilliant. Yeah. They're among the best in the country.
I think the kids love boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, grown-ups, you know, thinking they're doing the right thing. Have a smartphone, have crisps. What do you want?
Yeah.
Instead, you know, they want to sit down and be able to focus. I've got twin girls, and they're, you know, the TikTok generation, just this constant twitching. And if I show them, you know, you're going to see a film now. How long is this film? And they can't even comprehend.
So you think this has actually made a difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. They need to sit down and be able to breathe and just listen to one individual or two.
And do you ever take the phones away from them?
I try. I mean, it's like digital heroin. They go like, you know, they need a fix. Daddy, I love you. Just give me my phone. It's like that.
Yeah.
So I secretly hide this. Oh, where can it be? Whoa. And I sort of, yeah, I think just for a couple of hours.
I think it is important. I mean, I agree with you, Francis. You know, the kids don't like it. They want the phones. But actually, when you implement a system where they don't have those distractions, ultimately they are grateful for it. Well, that seems to be the case at Buxton.
Yeah. Of course, because ultimately kids realise that education is important.
Yeah.
We play this game where kids pretend that they don't know why it's important, and they'll say things, oh, why do I have to study? But deep down, everybody realises that if you do well at school, your chances when you leave school are going to be greater.
Yeah,
so actually, by taking the phones away and saying, look, this is something you can use outside of school, but once you're in school, you're here to study, you're here to learn, and you're here to progress. And you're not going to be able to do that if your phone is buzzing every 12 seconds because someone has messaged you.
And you used to be a teacher, right?
I did indeed.
To tell jokes and annoy people online.
Yeah, exactly. Well, basically, teaching and comedy are very much the same thing. It's basically talking to people, a group of people who basically don't want to be there, who are just waiting for the break so they can go outside and talk to their friends.
Did you have 42 pupils as well? Was that?
Yes, exactly, at the same time, yeah. And every class, like every audience, is a mixed ability audience.
Yeah.
Well, bad comedian always blames the crowd. I'm with you, Francis. I always blame them. Anyway, another question? Yeah, another question from Kasia. Where's Kasia?
Should students be forced to study the climate crisis?
OK, so this is students at the University of Barcelona are going to have to take a course on climate crisis from 2024 onwards. And it doesn't matter what subject they study, by the way, they're going to have to do this course in order to matriculate. What do you make of that?
We have this in Sweden.
Do you?
Yeah, Greta.
But she didn't even finish school.
You give every student a manual, and it's not called Greta's Expectations. And it's one of those. No.
But she didn't finish school. And
no, she didn't.
She's a truant.
Yeah. She's a what?
A truant.
What does that mean?
It means someone who skipped school.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm off. Yeah. But no, she didn't. But she's sitting outside Parliament still with a sign.
OK.
Now and then.
So I feel a bit bad for her, though, in a way, because, I mean, what if Greta, like, when she's sort of 25 and her, you know, brain is fully developed, she might suddenly... No, I'm not saying she's stupid. I'm saying she's a child. Yeah. Might she suddenly think, oh, God, I've got this, I want to change my mind? How could she possibly do that at that point?
I don't know, because, I mean, there was an interview with her and Russell Howard a couple of weeks ago, and she said she had a problem with white, privileged, middle-class people, and that includes her parents, right? So that's...
Right, I would have thought so.
It's just a very weird position.
Well, so what about this idea, Francis, of making students teach, even if you're not studying the climate?
I think it's hilarious. Can you imagine a bloke sitting there and they go, what do you think of climate change? So I just want to be an accountant, mate.
Yeah.
But that's all I want to do.
They're going to have... Yeah, but they'll say, yeah, but if there's no world, then there won't be any calculators.
Well, I mean, you're always going to need accountants. And the thing that I've...
even after the apocalypse?
Yeah, even after the apocalypse, there's still going to be people going, no, that's too many twigs, give one twig over. But the thing that I find funny is...
2 + 2 is 5.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that I find funny is that it's like you pointed out, it's these rich aristocrats who are kind of doing this top-down reform.
Can you explain this to me? Why are they all so posh?
Well, I don't know.
No, but I just love one of them to come on for an interview and be like, what's up, geezer? You know, it's not that. It's like, how dare thou? How do you know? Why fulfil the stereotype? Why not just choose spokespeople who don't sound like members of the royal family?
Right, because they know better. Somebody did this great joke on Twitter. So this activist's name is Indigo Rumbelow. And they said, if you want your Stop Oil activist name, then what you need to do is pick a colour and the name of a defunct shop. So mine is Lavender Wimpy.
That kind of works, doesn't it? Look, we get another question now. This is from Charles. Where's Charles? Hello, Charles.
Good evening, or should I say, what's up, geezer?
Totally call that off.
The question is, do you think prosecutions for hate speech and hate crimes should be made easier?
Now, so I was talking to Sarah Fillimore earlier about the hate crime issue, but there's this big debate going on in Ireland at the moment. So ministers have approved the bill, their new hate crime bill, which also incorporates notions of hate speech. But, you know, as I was trying to say to Sarah earlier, that the hate speech is defined differently in every single European country where it has been implemented, to the extent that UNESCO has said there is no shared definition of hate speech. No one knows what it means. In this country, we've got the Communications Act from 2003, and they say that if you post something grossly offensive online, you can go to prison. And the distinction, therefore, is between offensive and grossly offensive.
Yeah.
Well, How do we decide?
Who decides?
Who decides, right?
Yeah. And like you talked to Sarah about, the definition is so broad now. So if I say that, if you're born with a little thingy, you're a boy, is that hate speech?
Some people would say it's hateful, yes, exactly. Some people would say that you are assigned a gender at birth, that the obstetrician just flips a coin and makes a guess. Yeah, exactly. But that's the point, isn't it? If people are convinced that perfectly innocuous and legitimate points of view are hateful, then surely the whole category of hate speech is a problem. I mean, in Ireland in particular, there are a lot of concerns that this will lead to people, and we've seen it happen here, they scream hate if someone uses the words that they don't want them to use. This is a free speech issue, ultimately.
It's, of course, a free speech issue, because a lot of the people say this is hateful, this is wrong, when they're simply topics or subjects that they don't want to engage with. It's a really easy way to shut down debate. It's a really easy way to intimidate the person who you are challenging so that you don't have to engage with them. It's a very simple way.
Call it hate speech or fascism or whatever it is. And then the debate is over, right?
Although, to be fair, in your country, it's to be
fascist, true.
But that's the point, isn't it? It's if I say to you, well, what you're saying is just hate speech, that sort of disobliges me from having to engage with what you're saying. Now, look, it might be hateful, but I know you well, so I know it wouldn't be, right? Yeah. But if I'm determined to interpret it in that way, then we don't progress at all as a society. We can't have conversations anymore.
But that's the problem, because they don't believe in debate and having discussions. They sort of, of course, they know that certain things aren't hate speech, but they push it anyway, because it's part of their ideology, right?
But I mean,
so they pretend that it's hate speech.
But this idea of hate speech, I think, should be abolished altogether. Like, the free speech will include some hateful things, because hate is a human emotion, and sometimes people are going to hate things, and they have the right to express that in a free society. But that's it.
And the thing that I have a real problem with is it's denying people their humanity, because we all think things that are stupid, ignorant and wrong. But it's only by vocalising them and someone saying to you, hang on, maybe actually that's not the best way to think about this. Have you thought about it like this? Or actually somebody challenging going, you're wrong because A, B, C, D and E, F reasons. And you go, oh, actually, you've got a point there. That I was wrong, I take that back, I'm sorry, and then we improve as human beings.
Well, but that's the folly of the hate speech laws. Their idea is that if you just control the way people speak, all those hateful thoughts magically disappear. They don't. They tend to get driven underground to more dangerous places where they fester and grow, But anyway, we're going to have to move on to another question. This came in from our email account, from Samantha. Thank you, Samantha, for writing in. Have British Airways got it right by going gender neutral? You remember, of course, that Virgin Atlantic, I think they put out that big advert with lots of people in makeup dancing about, and that proved very popular. Now British Airways are doing that as well. Can't they just do their jobs?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like, I find it very strange that like, I don't care what the gender identity or sexuality is of the person. Just give me a gin and tonic.
I don't want the pilot sitting there with eyelashes and losing control of the plane.
But I don't care what they wear or how they feel about themselves. But like, this is big, and they shouldn't be dancing about on a plane. No, they'll tip it over. This whole thing is just.
They talked about giving their staff the opportunity to show their real, authentic, their inner
authentic
spirit.
selves.
But like you said, bring the trolley out. I want a gin and tonic or something to eat.
Yeah.
And not the name tag and all the... It's weird.
So what, pronouns on name tags and this kind of thing. Again, I just don't care.
The reality is that nobody cares, and the majority of people who work at Virgin or British Airways, all these companies don't care. We're in a cost of living crisis. If you really care about your employees, just give them a little pay rise so they can pay for their heating.
And their lipstick, that's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the Max... I don't know.
No, I do. Anyway, let's move on now. Final question from Kasia. Kasia again. Got a lot on your mind tonight, Kasia.
I know, it's me again, but that one is a good one.
OK.
Will you be boycotting Kentucky Fried Chicken?
You know what? I will be boycotting Kentucky Fried Chicken because I'm a vegetarian. But also because they did this absolutely terrible thing this week. So they released... This sounds made up. They released a promotional message to customers in Germany, right? And this was... it came up on an app alert. And they were suggesting that customers should commemorate the Memorial Day for Kristallnacht, which is obviously the Nazi-led 1938 attack on Jewish-owned businesses, by adding extra cheese to their crispy chicken. Now, KFC said this was a blunder, this was a mistake. You think?
Even hate speech.
They said this was due to a mistake in their system. I mean, I don't know where to begin with this.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, it could have been for their product, which they introduced pork or something into...
It could have been, but it reminds me of when... Do you remember when there was a KFC that...
Probably too far, I accept that.
At the time of Black Lives Matter, where one KFC advert for one branch had a chicken drumstick, and then it used the silhouette to mark a black fist, the symbol of Black Lives Matter. It's like, just... What are you doing? Like, what is going on here? But this is just anti-Semitic nonsense.
I'm pretty sure that KFC had killed more than 6 million people with their food. I mean,
it's pretty grim.
Greasy.
It's pretty grim.
Yeah.
But how can... They say it was a system error. Are computers now coming up with really anti-Semitic adverts? What's going on there?
It was a bot, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. But well, their argument is that they have a bot which tweets... Das bot. Sorry. Yeah, exactly, Das bot.
Very sharp. Yes, very good.
Yeah, so they have a bot which tweets promotional material, and it goes via the calendar. So, you know, happy Christmas, celebrate it with KFC.
You know what? That sort of makes sense, actually.
Happy Crystal Night. Happy Crystal Night. Have some cheesy chicken, mourn your dead relatives. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So
you can weave it past the chicken.
So I can see, weirdly, how that could happen, but at the same time, just monitor that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the worst PR thing I've ever seen.
Give one guy a job. Oh, no, just sit there and... Or maybe it was a member of Momentum. You never know.
You never know. After the break on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be joined by the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, who's got some strong views about the Just Stop Oil movement. He's going to be here in the studio to share them with us. Don't go away.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be the People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So parts of the M25 ground to a halt this week due to Just Stop Oil activists blocking the way. The Met Police said 58 people have been charged over the 4 days of protests until on Friday the group stopped with immediate effect, saying they'd hold no more protests for the foreseeable future to allow time for the government to do the right thing. But are these environmental activists really all they seem? So the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, thinks not, and he's here to tell us why. Tom Slater, everyone. So, am I imagining this? But every time these Just Stop Oil activists do their thing, and they get lots of attention, and we're all talking about them, and they say that's great, that means their tactics are working. But am I wrong in thinking that actually, every time we do talk about them, we're putting people off their cause?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think particularly in the past couple of weeks, it does feel like the public's patience with them has just completely run out. I mean, when they first, and when I say they, I kind of mean this constellation of groups, starting with Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain, all these different sort of brands. When they first sort of launched onto the scene around 2019, there was often this tendency to say, you know, your heart's in the right place, but maybe you can understand why people didn't like your tactics. Now they're just getting a rinsing on every
From everyone,
channel going.
Left and right, from every... I mean, people just don't like, firstly, the disruption to their lives, but also the fact that there was almost a crash the other day. You know, this is very serious stuff.
Exactly. And even, you know, we've even had Keir Starmer pluck up some courage in order to condemn them at this point.
And that tells you quite a lot
exactly.
to get him to develop a pulse, doesn't it? But, you know... but also, this thing about throwing paint at art and public buildings that are, you know, very historically significant, it just doesn't... And every time they do it, they say, we don't want to be doing this. You're making us do this. This is like the serial killer in that film Cruising. Whenever he stabs someone, he says, you made me do that. You know, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also become increasingly creepy, I think a lot of people will have noticed. So you talked about, you know, throwing soup cans on great works of art, people setting their own arms on fire, which is one thing that's happened in protest against private jets. That's one of the other front groups. That's one thing that we've seen. And also pouring, to put this politely, human waste over the statue or the monument to Captain Tom Moore, as one of these activists did. It's becoming increasingly kind of visceral, iconoclastic, scatological on occasion, and I think all of that is also what puts people off. I think it's charitable to call these people protesters. I think what we're looking at is kind of closer to an apocalyptic cult, and you certainly get that sense from the things that they actually say.
We played a clip earlier of the interview with Indigo Rumbelow, and I do believe that she sincerely believes what she's, well, let's say shouting. She's not saying it. What she's shouting. I think she's... I don't deny that she believes that the world is coming to an end imminently. So, you know, it's difficult, isn't it, when people have this sincerely held belief? Because then it's not a question, you know, if I genuinely thought that unless you behaved in a certain way, the world would explode, I would be like, Tom, come on. I would be, you know, so... How do you therefore deal with that? Because they're not coming at it from a rational position, are they?
I think that's exactly it. I mean, you talk about Indigo Rumbelow, whose name alone, you know, starts off titters of laughter. A very bourgeois movement, as many people will have noticed.
Just quickly, can you talk to me about that? Why are they always so posh?
Well, it's funny as well, because, you know, people would say, oh, that's just an ad hominem attack. But it's actually a statistical fact that they are overwhelmingly very middle-class, very bourgeois. There was a study a couple of years ago of the first kind of round of arrests from Extinction Rebellion. 85% of them have a degree. They're overwhelmingly southern and wealthy. And I think there's a reason for that insofar as environmental activism has always predominated amongst the sort of middle classes, historically, the quite reactionary middle classes and even upper middle classes. But I think in its current iteration, it just makes perfect sense because of the fact that they're preoccupied. If you have a certain level of comfort in life, you can become preoccupied about the end of the world quite quickly. So the Gilets Jaunes in France used to have a fantastic slogan, which is, you're worried about the end of the world, we're worried about the end of the month. So you want to put up taxes on us, but we actually are worried about getting by. And I think that's a big part of why you see this big class clash.
What strikes me is they never present the arguments. They just scream. Now, do they have a point? If they were to present the argument in a cool, collected, rational way, would they be right?
No, because it's complete nonsense. And actually, if you look at what they... And you were talking there about how Indigo and the rest actually really believe this stuff. So what is it, the stuff that they actually believe? So if you look at what some of their leading lights have argued previously, so you take Roger Hallam, who is one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion, is also very involved in Just Stop Oil. He believes that 6 billion people are going to die by the end of this century, which there's no study that backs that up, that no one credible actually
Where's he getting that from?
He's never been able to produce the evidence. I've debated him and he can't do it. But again, it's this idea that everything's going into hell in a handcart. He also, there's a video, and you're wondering why some of these kids are so scared and upset. There's a video that he put out a couple of years ago called Advice to Young People as They Face Annihilation. And there's one bit in it where he paints this hellscape image, which I won't go into the gory details, but effectively kind of dystopian mass murder, sexual assault. At one point he suggests that marauding boys will come into your house and burn out your eyes with a stick. That's almost a direct quote. So if you believe that, you'd probably climb up on a gantry as well.
So it's like The Walking Dead. He thinks the future is The Walking Dead.
That's pretty much it. And this is the thing. This is why it takes on a quite cultish aspect, because what you're talking about here is not a reasoned position come from reading the scientific evidence. It's effectively a kind of religious fervour and belief and obsession with the apocalypse.
But climate change is happening. So there's a point there, isn't there? And like Christopher Hitchens used to say, well, you know, we should actually just assume the worst in a way, because if we don't, and that transpires to be the end result, then we're screwed.
Well, I think you have to put humanity front and centre, though, and I think that's where a lot of these groups go awry and end up taking us down some quite dark alleyways. Because if your fundamental interest is human well-being and human flourishing, then the kind of eco-austerity that they're advocating for, you know, Greta, etc., talk about economic growth as a fantasy, effectively, even though it's the thing that's sustained our living standards. And even on some of the points that they make, that everyone's going to die, that there's going to be all this death and destruction, it is kind of the inverse of the truth, just because of the fact that over the past century, you know, deaths from climate-related disasters have dropped by 95%. Because the more you develop, the more that you can actually look after you can actually fortify yourselves against the,
but that's an interesting point.
Angers of nature, if you like.
You know, we know that human history is a story of technological progress. They don't seem to factor in that humanity might come up with some solutions to these problems through technological development. Why is that not even on their radar?
Well, I think it's because of the fact that fundamentally this is kind of about the environment, but it's also not. I think there's a kind of discomfort with modern industrial society, a sense that it's kind of soulless, a sense that consumerism is really vapid and we're all just, again, kind of living these quite bleak and soulless existences. And that informs a lot of it, because you talk about kind of technological breakthroughs and so on and so forth. You know, you could say, well, if we invented a form of energy tomorrow which was completely green, you know, very low carbon, and yet could still allow us to light up, you know, millions of cities, then wouldn't they embrace it? But, you know, they've been against nuclear for a very long time. They've been until quite recently, where they've kind of sort of gently embraced it. But that again is something where, you know, it's something like a Coke can's full of worth of uranium can power someone's entire life, and yet they don't want to embrace that.
And they're very happy that Rishi Sunak has backtracked on fracking, for instance. But isn't that an area for a good example of where we could have a debate about the pros and cons and make a decision on what's right?
And fracking is even kind of many environmentalists would recognise that gas and natural gas is going to be something that needs to be embraced, because of the fact that it's much lower carbon than coal, for instance. I mean, the US cut their climate emissions pretty steadily because of the fact that they really had that dash for gas in relation to fracking. But as I say, the reason that they don't want to embrace these things is because of the fact that, yes, they're quite extreme, but also what they're fundamentally interested in is the idea that society has kind of gone too far. We've developed too much. There might be too many of us. Some of them embrace that kind of ideas. So, you know, you could present them the perfect solution tomorrow and they probably almost wouldn't take it.
Well, it feels like very much an anti-human kind of way of looking at the world. You've debated a lot of these people, and I want to ask before you go, have you been able to get through to any of them? Is there any way to do that? And how long before they go really far and you know, things get really nasty?
Well, on the first point, I think whether you get through to them is, in a way, neither here nor there. They're in the grips of a pretty extreme ideology, but I think the audience is always the main thing whenever you're talking to these people. There's a lot of people out there who are not buying what they're selling, but they're still, you know, it's always worth having the argument in that sense. In terms of what they're capable of, I'm not someone who wants to go around calling these people terrorists. I think, if anything, that implies a level of physical courage of which they're probably not actually capable on the most part. But at the same time, what the ideology that we're talking about is quite extreme, it is quite anti-human, and whilst this lot might be decidedly non-violent, that general misanthropic ideology could be quite dangerous further down the line, I think.
Tom Slater, thank you very much for joining me. And after the break on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be getting both sides of the story on those all-important midterm elections in the US. See you in a few minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not
not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So let's turn our attention to politics in the US now, where the Democrats have kept control of the Senate after the crucial race in Nevada, cementing a midterms election performance for the party that widely beat expectations. For the Republicans, it was another blow as they underperformed in many races. The party had touted hopes of a red wave. Instead, with a few exceptions, such as Florida, the wave was little more than a few drops of rain. But let's hear from both sides then. So joining me from Republicans Overseas UK is their chairman, Greg Swenson, and all the way from Puerto Rico, we have Robert Weiner, who's the Democratic strategist and former spokesperson for the Clinton and Bush administrations. Thank you both for joining us. I'm going to come to you first, Greg. Greg, a lot of people are suggesting that the reason why the Republicans didn't perform as well as was anticipated is because of Donald Trump, because of the candidates that he endorsed, mostly celebrities and people who supported his views about the 2020 election, and that actually his time is over. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think that's partly true, Andrew. I think that some of his high-profile candidates obviously did not do well, and there were also some that had no business being candidates. You know, if you look at Mastriano in Pennsylvania, for example. So, yeah, there's plenty of blame to go around. I think the Republican Party made some mistakes. So it's not all on Trump by any means, but he's not looking good coming out of this. And surely he made some mistakes, and he definitely did not help the cause. That's for sure.
Do you feel any sense of optimism about this, though, from a Republican perspective? You know, it was just such... They've fallen so short from expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think there's any way back?
Yeah, I'm always looking for some silver linings or some good news. You know, look, we were disappointed, and I think it was a missed opportunity. There's no doubt about that. And I think our expectations were perhaps too high. We looked at the polls and thought, you know, we could have a 20 to 30 seat pickup in the House and you know, 2 to 4 Senate seats, maybe another 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 governor seats. So I think the disappointment is based on high expectations. I think we also have to remind ourselves how hard it is to defeat incumbent candidates. In all the governor and Senate races, the first incumbent to actually lose was only 2 days ago when the governor of Nevada lost to a Republican. So in spite of the Republican House votes being, you know, having a 4 to 5 point advantage over the Democrats in the popular vote, it's just really hard to flip incumbent seats. So challenges, yes. Massive pickups in some oddball states like New York. We picked up 4 House seats there. And then you look at Florida, Iowa, Texas, Georgia, really great outcomes for incumbent Republicans that have just crushed it and doing a great job, you know, didn't refuse to lock down, cut taxes, managed, you know, issues in the states that were particular to them. So there's some good news, but surely not the good news we had hoped.
Robert, I want to bring you in now because a lot of Democrats are claiming this as an incredible victory because it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. But really, is it a Democrat victory or is it a Republican failure?
It is both, and nice to be with you. Thank you for having me, by the way. But to Greg's point, missed opportunity, and he likes to blame Biden. I want to see those polls now that Biden's statements on democracy were so well taken by the American people and became the major issue. And after the abortion horrible mistake of appointing judges that were only going to vote that way on abortion backfired royally. So there were drastic mistakes on the Republican side, and the Democratic agenda was very effective in the Inflation Act that dropped drug prices and gas prices and all of that. So there were things that Biden did and succeeding in COVID, whereas the last president just wanted people to drink bleach. So the agenda succeeded. And NBC just ran a poll and said that Trump was a big drag on the Republican candidates. That is the main thing.
But Robert, is it not the case, though, that many Democrats were hoping that Biden wouldn't be running in 2024 and that actually now it looks like he almost certainly will because he sees this as a mandate, and actually that's not good for the party?
Well, that's such an overstatement. Everybody underestimates Biden, don't they? Because look at what he accomplished. The massive agenda that was remarkable, despite Manchin and Sinema on our side. He got them to turn around. And now with the extra padding in the Senate, it won't be even as difficult this time to do some of the major things that we want to do. So I think that if he looks at it as an opportunity, and by the way, as you know, he's a close friend. I was the youth vote director in 1971 and 2 when he first ran for Senate and did a forum in Delaware for him, and he had me over at his house. And we've talked ever since. And I did a piece on the youth vote pointing out that he, because of the youth vote in Delaware, defeated a 2-term incumbent Republican. Everybody underestimates Biden.
Well, Greg, I'm going to come to you now, and I should point out, for fairness, that Trump would counter the view that he claimed that people should drink bleach. But nevertheless, I'm going to bring Greg in here. Now, what Robert's saying there is that we have underestimated Biden, but the approval ratings for Biden are, what, I think 43% at the moment? That's not great.
Yeah, there are no low 40s in the national polls, but I think what's important is the exit polls from the election, and this is amazing to me. The exit polls, 57% of the people that actually voted have disapprove of Biden, and you had the right direction, wrong direction. A lot of these things, look, there's going to be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, but I think there's going to be a lot of, studying what mistakes were made, because how do you win the popular vote and have a president that's so out of favor and his policies are so out of favor? And prior to the election, Andrew, I mean, the top issues that, at least according to the polls, were inflation and the economy. The inflation was caused by Biden policies. The crisis at the border was caused by Biden policies. A lot of these things were actually caused by Biden policies or Democratic policies. Surely the crime in the cities, but yet, you know, and in many Republican strongholds, pro-life Republicans did really well. If you look at Kemp, DeSantis, these are governors that signed heartbeat bills in the last year or two. So
I'm going to have to bring Greg. I'm going to have to bring Robert in just to counter that, because I can see that he wants to say something about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
To blame inflation on Biden is ludicrous. It was Russia, Ukraine, oil company greed. 50% of the inflation is greed by the pharma companies and the oil companies, and Biden's going to do something about it. Democrats got the point, and the country got the point, that you can't count on Republicans to do anything but tax breaks for the rich, which would make the problem worse. And Biden will, with Congress, work exactly the opposite kind of policy.
Robert, can I just ask you, though, directly, Robert, do you not fear the prospect of Ron DeSantis running against Joe Biden?
Oh, he's going to be a strong candidate, and I think he will eclipse Trump. For the country, I hope he does. No one wants Trump with cheating and rigging and lying and denialism and ego and Russia and all of that. Nobody wants Trump. He is the biggest drag. I totally agree with the NBC poll on the votes. And if Republicans don't dump him, they are nuts.
And I want to ask the same of Greg, because it's quite clear, isn't it? Yeah. The way that DeSantis has turned Florida around from, I mean, last time he won by, 30,000 votes. Now he's winning by 1.5 million. He's clearly the candidate. But is it not the case that Trump has too much of a grip on the GOP?
No, I don't think that's the case. And it's probably changed just in the last few days since the election. And you're seeing that in some of the, you know, the popular people that have flipped on him, but also the conservative media. And I think many voters, the poll this morning had DeSantis up 7 points over Trump. That's the first time he's been leading. I think the important issue here, and I think Robert would agree with me, is if 5 or 10 Republicans run against Trump or run in the primaries, they will split the non-Trump vote. And so I think it's important, if it was just DeSantis and Trump, I think at least as of now, DeSantis would have a huge advantage. And I think many of us, including me, would be pleased with that. The challenge is if there are too many people running like we had in 2016, and I think you saw that even with the Democratic primaries in 2020, if you split the vote amongst the non-Trump, and I think back in 20, you know, the non-Biden vote was being split, you know, ultimately, I think that's the biggest challenge. It's not whether we like Ron DeSantis, because most Republicans do.
OK, well, final word to Robert, because we have to wrap up now. Any thoughts on that?
Ron DeSantis is no angel either, with his anti-gay, anti-education policies, and will do just fine running against him if that is to be the case.
OK, very interesting. Well, Greg and Robert, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, it is the part of the show where we devote to the world of social media, and where else could we start but with Matt Hancock, who, of course, has been all over social media thanks to his appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And plenty of... It seems as though every clip that is put out with Matt Hancock goes viral, including, of course, this one.
I've resigned, and it's no excuse, but I fell in love, right? And that is hard, and that also had a lot of other consequences, obviously.
You didn't just fall in love, you were grabbing booty, bro.
Oh, give over.
Sorry. I'm sorry, bro.
You are a comedian.
I'm going to say that falling in love and grabbing booty aren't mutually exclusive, are they? I mean, I think... Fair enough, isn't it, Francis?
I mean, it seemed to be there was a whole spate of people during the pandemic who were telling us what to do, and then breaking the rules so they could go and get a bit of nookie at the same time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, but I kind of feel sorry for Matt Hancock. I know it's a stupid thing to say because everyone hates him, but I do. I feel sorry because I thought being spied on in that office, and you know, it was a private thing.
It's a private thing,
It was consensual adults.
I mean, that is a pretty low bar, Andrew, I'm going to be honest with you.
OK.
Yeah, I mean, that is how our politicians are at the moment, so that's fair enough.
Do you know about Matt Hancock? Has this got...
Of course.
I mean, it has it?
Yeah.
OK.
We discussed
discuss him in Sweden. No, I just know that he grabbed, what was the booty? What was
yes.
the phrase? Can I do this on television?
Well, you already have, so it's done.
And
I think the point is that he's a politician who called for lockdown. He was very strict on lockdown, and then he was seen breaking the law,
and I
breaking the rules.
saw him doing that.
With playing the oboe.
Playing the oboe. But I mean, he should be allowed to misbehave in private, I think. So I agree with you.
Why is he going into the jungle, though? I mean, he's a politician.
400 grand, mate.
That's why. Oh, well,
that's why he's going into the reportedly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, fair play.
400 grand, but apparently he's doing it for dyslexia, guys. So. And dyslexia awareness, because nobody's heard of dyslexia.
Look, we've got to move on to the next one. This is another one. This is President Biden. I'm afraid he's mixing up Cambodia and Colombia while hosting an international summit. Let's have a look.
Okay.
And now that we are back together here in Cambodia, I look forward to building even stronger progress than we've already made. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for Colombia's leadership in the ASEAN chair.
I'm just so depressed with this stuff. Like, I just think, run him against DeSantis and he hasn't got a hope. He just hasn't.
Generally, I'm actually half South American, and I find that disgusting what he did. Because
really
it is really upsetting because our cocaine is far better than Cambodia's.
Yeah.
Just is.
We've got to move on to a slightly lighter note. Let's have a look at this video. This went viral this week, apparently. This is a pigeon who decided he preferred to hitch a ride on a plane.
Wow.
That is a lazy pigeon. You know, I mean, surely the pigeon's supposed to be able to fly. I mean, this is... Oh, there it goes. I mean, what is there to say about that, Francis? It's
like, people, this is a true story. People always deny this. I got on the train. This was the District line, the tube at East Putney, and a pigeon got on, right?
Yeah.
And then it went right to Putney Bridge. Doors opened. The pigeon got off.
Really?
So smarter than you think.
He didn't fly. He walked in.
No, he
sat
walked
down,
in.
read
He
the
just
paper
stood there and then waited, and then the doors opened. He hopped up at the next stop.
Same pigeon.
Same pigeon.
They need to know their place, these pigeons.
Yeah.
Sick of them. Right, now, look, this is the part of the show we are going to look at some unfiltered dilemmas. I really appreciate every week you sending in your problems, because I think we just make matters worse, if I'm honest. But let's have a look. The first dilemma is from Jodie in Norfolk, and Jodie says, my dad insisted on dialing into Dolan, but he won't sit in the audience of my favourite show, Free Speech Nation. It's causing a massive rift between the two of us. What do I do? Well, look, Mark is a great friend of mine, so I really don't want to get involved in this spat. What do you think?
She should leave. No, I don't.
Disown the father.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Just find out which one has the bigger ratings, and then go with that one.
Oh, you are such a... I can't say the word. Can't say it, because it's before the watershed and it's the Sabbath. Anyway, our second dilemma is from Kevin. Kevin says, I have a couple of friends who don't agree with my views, and it is starting to cause arguments. I know the feeling. Do I have to start censoring myself around them? Well, I've always advocated for the idea of just saying what you think. I used to, I think about this a lot. When I was at university, we used to have debates, and we used to love disagreeing, and it would be, and sometimes it would
was part of it, right?
It was part of the whole thing. Yeah. But now people are quite fearful of that. But that's because I think there's an assumption that if you disagree, you're evil. Where did that come from?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but it's also about the fact that if you disagree with someone, you get called a troll or a fascist or a Nazi, whatever it is, and it can actually affect your life.
It can.
Your livelihood. So it's a reason why people sort of think before they speak.
Why is this happening, Francis? It's your fault. It's you and your podcast.
Yeah, it is. That is definitely me and my podcast. No, I think it's because more and more people are conflating politics and morality.
Right.
Whereas before we would just think, oh, that's your Uncle Tony. He's a Tory. What are you going to do? Anyway, does it matter? Whereas now we go, that's Uncle Tony, let's burn him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real problem. But listen, we do have to wrap the show up, but I do, before we go, can you just remind us, you are on tour at the moment, Francis?
Yes.
Where are you performing?
I'm on tour all over the country, but next week I am in Guildford and Norwich doing lots of cocaine-based jokes. So come and see me, get tickets, francisfoster.co.uk.
Fantastic.
You and the pigeon, yeah.
Me and the pigeon.
You and the pigeon.
Yes, exactly.
Are you performing while you're over here, Tobias?
I have been performing, yeah. So
yeah, but they can't go and see you last night.
I know. I'm coming back.
You are coming back.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Well. Do come and join us again, though. I always love it when you come into the country. Yeah, brilliant. Well, and if you do perform here next time, I'll plug it.
Let you know. Yeah.
Let me know.
Please plug it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point of you coming on. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. So this was the week when the red wave failed to emerge in the midterms. Maths was declared racist, and eco-warriors stretched the public's patience to breaking point. So thank you to my panel, Francis Foster and Tobias Pearson, and to all my fantastic guests. I've had Tom Slater, Sarah Phillimore, John Armstrong, and all the rest of them who I can't remember. And if you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can do that. All you need to do is go to www.sroaudiences.com and apply there, and you can come along. And we have food and we have wine. Look at how happy our audience is tonight. Come and join them. Stay tuned for the brilliant Mark Dolan tonight. That is next. Don't forget, Headliners is on every night at 11 o'clock. And that's where comedians take you through the next day's news stories. Thank you ever so much for watching. See you next week. Farewell.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking misty and murky in the east, with rain edging in from the west. Let's take a look at the details. A mostly cloudy, mild start to the day across Scotland, with low cloud, mist and fog in the east. Some brighter spells in the west, but windy, with rain arriving later. A rather wet start to the day for Northern Ireland, particularly in eastern areas. However, it will turn drier and brighter from the west. Northwest England will start the day rather cloudy, with the best of any brightness towards the north and west, some early mist in the south. It will be a cloudy start across northern Wales, with outbreaks of rain edging in from the west. There will be low cloud and hill fog, giving a murky start for many. The East Midlands will have a very misty, murky start to Monday morning, with patchy fog for many. The cloud and fog will slowly lift throughout the morning, a mild start again. And dry and mild start in East Anglia on Monday, bright with early sunshine in the east, but cloudy, misty and murky in the west, with fog patches slowly lifting. The south of England will start the day mild but rather cloudy. There will also be patchy low cloud. Mist and fog will slowly lift through the morning. Mist and murk will slowly lift in the east, while a band of showery rain slowly edges eastwards from the west. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.